It's been an eventful few days for Essex Cricket. Plenty to discuss and to work out some of the detail. As always, join 98 Not Out on the podcast, YouTube, and of course, listen to the radio show every Thursday night between 6 and 7 on Phoenix FM. Today, here joining me is my old mate, Richard Clarke, aka the Grumbler.
Hi Darren, how
Richard,
are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thanks for joining me. Um, as I said in the intro, it's been a busy few days on and off the field, actually. Let's start on the field, actually. Let's start on a positive note. Looks like we are clawing our way to survival, would you say?
Yeah, it's just end of the second day of Warwickshire, the Warwickshire game that we're speaking about. But it's the first day effectively, of course, because the day one was completely rained off. And Essex, now what was the final score anyway? We were five down and over 300 runs, and a good day really because very much in control after being put in difficult conditions. Elgar got runs. Charlie Allison got runs. Charlie Allison got a little bit nervous and he was out for 98, edge to slip, which was disappointing. That would have been his fourth ton of the season. You know, that's more than anyone else. No one
Yeah.
else got 4 tons this season. Charlie Allison came in as a kid that we didn't know too much about. And he's, if he'd just got those extra 2 runs, more tons than anybody else, that's saying something. But most important thing is bonus points and in control of a draw. And given where we are in the season, staying up is what it's all about. And we are in control of that as it stands. And that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, and I think given the cards that Essex were dealt at the start of the season, I think it's an admirable performance to end up, to survive because we knew. I think I remember you and I being at a meeting just sort of at the very beginning of the season and thinking it looks already like a threadbare squad, and then straight away injuries, England call-ups, really, really did put us to the test. So to have achieved what has been achieved, I think you've got to take your hat off to Chris Silverwood and the coaching staff and the players.
Yes, if you look at it, Sam Cook has played less than 50% of the championship games. Jordan Cox has played about 2/3, I think I'm right in saying. I think it is exactly 2/3. They're our key players. And if you've got a small squad, you lean on your key players more than anything else. And of course, Cook wasn't playing for England. So we didn't need those extra players to like Surrey do, for example. They always say we need a big squad because we're losing these players for England. Well, we weren't doing that, but it happened this year with Elgar being out for 3 games at the start of the season, picking up injuries along the way. Jordan Cox gets a lot of injuries, man. He's a great player, but he gets a lot of injuries, especially at the wrong time as well. And I was really worried about Essex going down. Had a stinker of a start in the T20, but made a bit of a recovery. Had a stinker of a start in the 50 over, but recovered really well.
Yeah,
Actually,
really well.
put in some good performances. Had a relatively stinker of a start in the championship, but he's coming back okay. It wouldn't surprise me if we finished fourth, actually, which
Yeah.
which would be okay. You know, there's been seasons where we've been in a title race and finished fourth, but we were never in the title race. I also think Chris Silver has mentioned this in terms of the pace bowling, which is so important. You look at, for example, Surrey relying on Fisher today. Now, Fisher is a player who's down the list in terms of them, but they relying on him to get wickets in the key game against Nottinghamshire. Essex don't have that depth, and it's something that Chris Silverwood has spoken about a lot, which is why we've got Akhtar in and Colleen in, and obviously Bennett's made a push to come through. Jones is making a push to come through, but Silverwood has been very aware that we lack that depth of pace bowling. Snater's not surprised to me that he's got an injury because we relied on him a hell of a lot this season. Porter's Porter. You know, we needed him, and Jamie Porter turns up week in, week out. But Silverwood, I think, I sensed a little bit of upset in his voice, and he doesn't do upset a lot, over the lack of depth in the pace bowling department, which is so important. And he's addressed that. And I think, start of the season, we weren't sure about Nerthane. Start of the season, we weren't sure about Charlie Allison. Start of the season, we hadn't really heard of Mackenzie Jones or young Charlie. Now, all of those are players that we think, okay, they've got something about them, to various extents. I think next year works for us. I think we'll be stronger. And if we can get out of jail by staying up, having had injury and circumstances against us, I'll take that, and we move on.
Now, there was a members forum last week where you and I were in attendance, and just sort of continue with Chris Silverwood. I mean, he was quite candid to questions from the floor about the problems he's faced, but he was also seemed to be quite firm in his vision for the future, and the fact that he had identified already the areas of weakness, and I think he kind of hinted that he had targets in mind. So I think from that front, I've got a whole lot of confidence in someone that like Spoons, who has his hand on the wheel.
I think he's got a heck of a lot of experience, and I thought it was obvious that he should come back. He was the obvious pick if he wanted to come back, and we're seeing the benefits of that experience. For example, Charlie Allison played as opener, didn't really look like an opener. I would have dropped him in mid-season and brought in Nick Brown. He stuck with Allison, and Allison has come through in spades. Same thing with Nerthane. Nerthane didn't look like he was offering that much at the start of the season. Now you're there thinking, well, he's going to bowl second or third change, and he could stick around in number 7 and easily get a 50. Okay, he's contributing. He's stuck with those players, and he's stuck with youth, I think partly because he has to, because everybody knows we are relatively tight on money, but also Silverwood has had to play youth in periods where you would ideally need experience for all sorts of reasons. Some of it, the squad that's been left. Some of it is the inability to get players on loan, because no one's going to loan to Div 1. It's very hard to do that. He's backed his judgment, and largely he's been proven right. And I think we've got to applaud that, and we've got to appreciate that. This has not been a great season, but then again, the bar that we've had over the last 10 years has been exceptionally high. If we have one of those seasons where, okay, it's not gone right, blah, 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 we get through it, we stay up, we move on. Bear in mind all the structural things around county cricket at the moment, particularly non-host counties such as us. We've got a whole load of issues to solve. So we've got to turn the boat around and put us on the front foot as an organisation, so we have a future. So I applaud Chris Silverwood for backing his judgment and broadly getting it right, and that's not easy to do.
Now that brings me on nicely to the next subject that was at that members forum, which is the proposed restructure or not of the county championship. We've seen a bit of a change in the T20 due to player concerns, and just a bit of common sense applied about why do you have a successful tournament that's shooting itself in the foot by being poorly scheduled, but it's being played in a block from next year onwards, lesser games. But they still haven't decided on the county championship. Now, we had this meeting last week. Essex are digging their heels in and saying they want to retain a format of 14 championship games in a season. But there's huge pressure from the ECB to do otherwise.
Yes, and the chair, when he spoke at the previous meeting online, and he obviously wasn't at the last meeting, when he spoke to the previous meeting online, he spoke about the fact that the board had unanimously voted in favour of the club line being to retain 14 games, and they would hold that line even though they were expecting a significant amount of pressure. Obviously, the background to all this is we've had the 100 brought in and nothing can touch that. And that is the elephant in the room that nobody is talking about. That has squeezed everything. Leaving that one aside, because you've heard me talk about that big enough. Everybody also accepts that the current schedule throughout the season, not just about 14 games of the championship, but the whole schedule is not right. Now, yet again, the 100 is part of that. but it seems to me there is something of desperation to reduce the county championship in some way, shape, or form. So this 13 game proposal has been brought in pretty much late on, after it was reported that there was a stalemate over potential changes and other solutions. So through perhaps a default setting of not liking anything that was put forward, we were going to stick with what we've got. A carrot was offered over this late new formula, which would be a 2 extra 50 over games. Okay, it's a somewhat complicated structure, the 13 game structure, and it was a joy to see them try and explain that in the meeting last week, because there was a lot of furrowed brows. It is difficult to explain. I worry. I don't mind bits of it, actually. I do worry that if you're a second division side, you're playing potentially the same teams 3 times in the season, and it's going to be very dull and boring. And always we think about the teams at the top that will benefit the most from this, not the teams that will be potentially left behind by this. But also, as again, with all these things, all the changes that have happened over the last 10 years, what concerns me most is the manner in the way that this is being introduced, in the sense that we're talking about, if this change is made, and remember, it needs 12 votes for, because it's a 2/3 majority that is needed. And currently we're understood that it has 11 votes. It's 11-7 rather than 12-6. So it only needs 1 to flip. And we're told that if it is decided that there will be a change by the 12-6 margin, that will be set in stone until 2031, by my understanding. And yet, if we agree not to make a change, they're going to come back in a year or two. And it seems to me that incentives are being offered to create this change. Why can we not accept, okay, we've had a debate, we haven't found a solution. Bear in mind that Leicestershire have been promoted, for example, as far as we're aware, and maybe being handed a second division trophy. We don't actually know where they will potentially play next season. I talk about Essex staying up and other teams going down. We don't know where they'll play because this hasn't been decided. It's all very late, all very pressured, and also not accepting the wider issues within the game, which are, in my opinion, creating a set of haves and have-nots.
Oh, yeah, big time.
If you add to that the pressure that's put on, I don't think that counties, especially non-host counties, are being treated necessarily fairly in this. And there's an element of the bullying that has been accused before, that was accused of, that word was used, bullying, in terms of the way that the 100 was pushed through. And yet again, one of my major issues around that, and my major issues around this, is not necessarily around what is introduced, it's the way that is being introduced, who benefits from it, and why that situation is acceptable in cricket and the way that cricket is run. And it reduces my trust.
Yeah, no, it just seems a bit frayed. And my gut feeling with this is, as you say, and I'll use your word bullying, but it is almost like forcing non-host counties to the edge. And we know about this payment from the 100, which people are jumping up and down in joy about. But as we've said before, you and I, that is basically a golden handshake. It's a redundancy payment. And once that money's gone, it's gone. And if you are reducing the appeal of red ball cricket to the smaller counties, the non-hosts, call them what you will, there is a danger that if they are being forced to play meaningless dead rubber games against the same people again and again, people aren't going to turn up, and gradually the life support is going to be switched off.
Yeah, there's a fundamental question in all of this, is making county cricket pay. And I don't think that's been answered by anything that's happened in the last 10 years or so. And it's a valid question. Far too many counties struggle to make money. But then again, your average Premier League team lost 40 million last year. Your average championship team is losing 400,000 a week.
Yeah.
Average League One side is losing about 40, 50 a week. So sport runs on a loss in this country. Okay. And that applies to, and part of the reason for that is that wages are too high. So we have to address that. That is a serious issue we have to address. None of what we're doing, for me, is addressing that if we want to keep the game across 18 counties or 18 centres, shall we say, nationwide. If we want to have 10 or 12 major teams based out of cities, then let's continue doing what we're doing. But I don't think that's the best for the game. I don't think that's what the game exists for. And I also think, for all the love of the Premier League in particular, I don't necessarily want to follow that route. I don't think why. No. I don't know why we should. It's a different sport. I love it for different reasons, and I have different objectives for it. But that said, we do need to address the issue of making county cricket interesting, and therefore have the ability to pay its own way. And of course, what you said is quite right. If you make 6 teams at the bottom end play boring cricket, pointless cricket, with no real hope of going further, well, they're naturally going to wither and die. And then somebody will turn around in 10 years' time and say, look, it hasn't worked. There's no point in these. Let's just cut them loose. Well, you've created the circumstances where that can happen. You haven't looked after the lesser lights. You've been looking after the leading lights. And for me, that's not what a cricket governing body does. And that's not what we should do around the great sport of cricket.
I think also with county cricket, it's important to focus on its very unique USP, in that when you think of red ball cricket being played in whites, it's at places like New Road or, Hove, picturesque county grounds, not the urbanisation which franchise cricket is pushing the sport towards. So if you take away the, I hesitate to use the word romance of the game, but also the fact that county cricket is very, very therapeutic. It's a great place if you've had a stressful day, you're leading a stressful life, to just go and spend a day sat watching a gentle-paced county cricket game in beautiful surroundings amongst like-minded folk. Then that is really as important as anything else. You and I know that. You and I also appreciate probably things of beauty, things of art, things of music, but they're not always. The therapeutic part of county cricket is not monetizable. Okay, it doesn't show on a bank balance, an account sheet at the end of the season. For me, that's massively important. Massively important. That is why I gave my membership fee up in the COVID year and bought a shirt that was massively overpriced. I want them to exist. This is one of my great loves. I want them to exist, and I also want Leicestershire to exist and Derbyshire to exist. Even though I don't necessarily contribute to them financially, I want them to exist. It's part of the tapestry of my life is county cricket, the rhythms of county cricket. I've been sitting there enthralled, having 2 screens on, watching Surrey versus Notts and Warwickshire versus Essex. For me, that's the greatest sport there is. Watching those games evolve is fantastic. However, I don't think it's appreciated. I do think, actually, while I say it's not monetizable, I do think that every sport, and I've written about this, every sport is the hype is turned up to 11. Everything is noise, 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 quick, 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 hype, 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 hype. Is there not room for one slow sport? Is there not room for one sport where, fishing is just about to say, yeah, but it's one of the most it used to be one of the most popular pastimes in this country, and partly that was its contemplative nature. Is that not saleable? Because it seems to me we're selling cricket in the way we sell boxing and the way we sell football. And yet again, I'm not anti short form cricket at all. I love T20 cricket, but I love it in a different way. I don't watch as much T20 cricket as I do Championship cricket, partly
because it's too crowded and too loud, and I want to be able to walk around and take it slowly. Perhaps that's my time of life, Darren. But that's what appeals to me. And as I say, I believe that should be a selling point, but it's not the way that modern sport is sold. But the interesting thing is, you know, Essex is sponsored by a cruise line, Ambassador Cruises. There you go. If you want to give me a freebie, you give me a freebie, Ambassador Cruises. Anyway, I had no interest in going on a cruise forever. But now, as I've moved into my 50s, my mid 50s, I'm looking and thinking, might fancy one of those. Same thing happens with a lot of people with county cricket, right? When you're a kid, when I was a kid, I was into the 40 over stuff a lot. Didn't watch any county game. Now I appreciate the longer format, not because it's changed, but because I've changed.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So there's a SGM taking place on the 24th of September as a result of all of these discussions. Now, the purpose of this is it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? The purpose of this is basically for members to give their okay to the club taking a stance of retaining a 14 game county championship structure. This is I've worries about this, maybe unnecessary, but I mean I look at what happened to Gloucestershire, where no one turned up and they didn't have enough to form a quorum.
It was Glamorgan. It was
Oh,
Glamorgan.
Glamorgan. Yeah, I always get those two mixed up. I don't know why. Yeah, yes.
Emails to Demu to.
um, so yeah, I mean, is there any point to this meeting?
I'm not sure there is, given where we are, that the board have agreed, and it was a unanimous vote. So even though there's been a change of chair, it shouldn't affect anything. It's unanimous within the board when they voted. Our stance should be 14 games. So presumably, I can't believe that would change. This meeting now, my understanding was to ensure that the views of the members were heard by the board, and therefore the board would be taking them on and presumably backing them, and they would back them to the tune of 14 games. That's already been agreed. So presumably, if you're one of the, I think it was 250 people needed signatures, if you've signed the petition, you should be turning up.
Yeah.
Right? Because we don't want a situation where we don't have enough people for a quorum. Now, I don't think that applies in Essex just because of our statute. I actually asked that at the meeting because it was ridiculous that, I think I'm right in saying it was Glamorgan needed to have 50 people to have a quorum, enough people to have a reasonable vote, and not enough of them turned up. This is one of the issues, that we need to be a county whose members are active physically, right, and positive physically, because I know I'm the grumbler, but that's a poke in the ribs at the average member, because moan too much and don't do enough.
Yeah.
And we need to change that, because we've got a fight on our hands with county cricket, and we need committed people trying to look positively, albeit I accept that's damn hard at the moment.
You've touched a couple of times on something that I feel we need to talk about, although probably not in too much depth. But we are having to change chair again. After the John Farragher episode, we appointed a chair then, but that went disastrously wrong when he put out some misjudged social media posts. Adam Mahindra was then appointed and seemed to be, in my opinion, a very good fit. I mean, he was a KC, was authoritative, he was into his cricket, he was local, and seemed to be doing a good job in steering the Essex ship through some very, very troubled waters. But unfortunately, he now has run aground through some historic stuff away from cricket with his legal profession, and it's caused him to fall on his sword.
Yes, I find this disappointing because, as I've said before, county cricket has huge challenges at the moment. Essex have huge challenges at the moment. Our ground is
a museum piece.
I don't know. I don't know how to describe it without being rude, but it is not. It is barely fit for purpose, and it has been left. It has not been looked after over years. And that goes back to previous regimes, in my opinion, because that's part of the job, to look after the future. It is now left for the current board, after having a lot of upheaval, to try and steer the club through a ground redevelopment, which will be probably one of the most important things in the club's recent past, for the past couple of decades. Because as we've spoken about, the safety net of ECB funding likely to disappear in the next few years, Essex have to become more self-sustaining, and the ground is crucial for that. For me, we had a good team in place, with Anu there, with Neil Faraday there, with Dan Feast there. These are the people who are sharp, committed, knew what they were doing. What's happened with Anu is not anything to do with Essex itself, but it's to do with his profession. And I understand that being a KC, you have to have a high standard of conduct. I understand what's happened as a result of him being disbarred, and I think it was the only solution to go. That said, I'm sorry about it, because while I didn't agree with everything that he said at meetings, I respected his intellect, his clout, and the fact he was pulling for Essex the right way. So we need to make another appointment within the board that sees us looking towards the future, with the ability to set us on the right course, steer us on the right course. And it's just upheaval that we don't need at the moment, because I thought we were set fair for a few years. And, you know, this funding for the stadium and going out and getting sponsorships and dealing with hotels and construction people, this is a huge job for a volunteer board and for a small staff. And we need to get behind them. We've absolutely got to get behind them. I don't agree with everything any board has ever done, but we have to get behind them, because, yet again, if I look at county cricket memberships across the board, it seems to me the best results for boards is if there's silence, because there's far too many county memberships that are saying, well, they're terrible, this is terrible, that's terrible. Well, they can't all be. And we have to accept their difficult circumstances. So I'm not saying don't criticize. I'm not saying don't question in any way, shape, or form. But you've got to kind of meet boards halfway. And that, you know, I've been critical of the way of nominations committees, of the elections, the way that boards are put together. Whole load of questions, absolutely. But you've got to back people who are stepping up, trying to make change. Not without question, not without criticism, but let's try and look on the positive side, because there's enough people, in my opinion, trying to bring county cricket down without us bringing it down from the inside.
Yeah. And I think it's important to underline, you've already said it, but these are volunteer positions. You know, if you're you're a chair, or you're on a board at any county, it's volunteering. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort that you're putting in. And I think you're right. I've seen some quite disgraceful stuff across social media about recent events today and in the last couple of days. If you were someone that was giving up so much of your own time for little to no financial reward, that must be soul destroying. So I think you're absolutely right. The way to sort of spur these guys on, and women, is to just support them and just get behind them, encourage them in what they're doing. They're the ones that have, you know, taken the step to try and get actively involved. So they really, really should be applauded for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've considered standing for the board a couple of times. I look at some of the flack that's flying around from all county members towards their boards, or a lot of county members, and I'm there thinking, why would I bother?
Yeah.
Why would I bother?
Yeah.
You know, and everybody. I spend a lot of time thinking about county cricket, writing about county cricket, and I turn up a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm there, you know, and Dan Feast, you see Dan Feast around all the time. You saw John Stevenson around all the time. Our CEOs, our last couple of CEOs, have got out there and met the fans. I think our board need to do a better job of doing that at times. I think a members committee maybe should be. I don't know. I don't know all of them, but there's a visibility that we need to have. But at the same time, if they're going to get visible, then they need to be treated with respect. Because far too often the conversation is, well, this is rubbish and you're terrible, and this is a good idea and nothing's happened, and I'm going to do nothing about it, but I'm going to continue to moan. Yeah. We need to change that conversation. As I've said to you before, I'm not sure that membership is a product, is a situation that we can really go on with, because it seems that, and it's coming to the fore here in the sense that we are members clubs, but clubs are turning around and saying, yeah, okay, but members are what, 10% of our revenue, and we have a fiduciary duty to run the club so it keeps in business. That's part of our fiduciary duty, and yet you are voting through things that, in our opinion, might lead to us going out of business. That's where we are, because things are so tight, and that's not necessarily anyone's fault. It's the way it's gone. But it comes down to the fact that, yet again, county cricket can't pay for itself. We need to change that, and we need to work together to make that happen. Now, look, I'm as critical as anyone else. I accept that. But with regard to county boards, I think that relationship has to be closer and less confrontational.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a conversation for another day, because and I'm sensing this from around Essex. There are growing noises about moving away from a membership structure, moving to a more business-like. And we've seen other counties that have done it. You know, Durham and Hampshire, to name a couple, where members just become season ticket holders and let the professionals get on with the business side of running a professional sports club.
I don't want that. I don't want that, because if anything, what we've seen in football in recent years is season ticket holder isn't a good enough position, because when we had the European Super League, fans let their clubs know what they'd done wrong, and the reaction to that was to let fans have golden shares or voting rights over some key things like moving ground. And
the Bundesliga happened as well, doesn't it?
Well, Bundesliga is always 51% owned by the fans, which is one of the strengths of the Bundesliga, and the fan culture is exceptionally strong there. It also, some clubs now trying to fight against that, because in order to get the external money that they need in to compete, the German clubs are saying, well, we're going to have to change this in some way. So yet again, it's that fight for money. But German football is very strong with big crowds, cheap tickets. A lot of people have looked in the past from the Premier League to the Bundesliga with a lot of envy, even though a lot of people would say the Premier League is the biggest and best in the world, but they look at Germany and think, well, the atmosphere is great, fans are close to players, big crowds, cheaper tickets, blah, blah, blah. Fan experience is fantastic. So, you know, there are different ways of doing sport. That's what I'm saying. And as I said, my previous point, we are trying to approach cricket in the way that we approach the Premier League at times. Sell, hype, money, money, money.
Apples and pears.
And that's you know, there's different ways to do sport in different ways.
All right, Richard, we'll wrap it up there. Very, very interesting and thought-provoking conversation as always. If you've got any views on this, if you are listening or watching this, get in touch through the usual channels and let me and Richard know what you think about our discussion. And have you got any constructive views on all the things that we've been talking about? I stress constructive. We don't want abuse. It doesn't get you anywhere. Richard Clarke, AKA the Grumbler, and a writer of the County Cricket newsletter, which is still going despite everything. Many, many thanks for joining me.
Cheers, Aaron.